Okay, so I will introduce myself. My name is Shamika Klassen. I am a rising fourth year doctoral student in information science at the University of Colorado Boulder, where I'm currently located in Boulder, Colorado in the United States. I have put together a Python script for reading PDFs, counting the words in them, and putting together a spreadsheet that will consolidate all of that information. Since it sounds like most of you all don't have much experience with programming, what I'm hoping to do is explain the process, and hopefully you all can rewatch this as many times as you need to in order to understand the concepts behind the coding that I put together. So I can do my best to explain some of the basics of Python, but this is not necessarily a Python intro to programming training course, though I have TA'd for intro to programming classes. So I will do my best to explain things as clearly as I can for folks who don't have experience in Python. So the first thing I'm going to share is how to get into an environment to code with Python. There's a couple ways to do it, but I have found that one of the more user-friendly ways is to use an environment called Anaconda, like the snake. Anaconda is a program, and I'll put the link in the chat here for downloading it. Okay. All right, so I don't anticipate that folks will be able to install this and actually run it and follow along during this presentation, because it does take time to download, get it set up and started. I already have it on my machine. So what I'm going to do is show you all what that looks like once it's downloaded and how to get into what's called Jupyter Lab. So Jupyter Lab is an environment that you can create Python scripts in, and that's what we're going to use. So I'm going to start sharing my screen, and if folks have questions or if something comes up, feel free to unmute or put something in the chat if you feel more comfortable doing that, and I will do my best to answer those up for y'all. Okay, so I want my desktop one. Okay. All right, so folks should be able to see my screen here. I'm gonna hide the meeting controls. Okay, so can everybody see this Anaconda navigator?
Yes.
Awesome, thank you. So this is what the Anaconda platform looks like. There's lots of different options here, but what we're going to focus on is Jupyter Lab. This is where I created the Python scripts. So when you launch Jupyter Lab, it'll open in a browser. So I already have a Google Chrome browser ready for this tab to open Jupyter Lab in. All right, so once you're in Jupyter Lab, on the left-hand side panel here, you'll see a directory of all the folders that you're in. Right now, I'm in a Dropbox folder, but if you want to have a specific folder that you put your Python scripts in, you can navigate to that folder in this panel. So as you can see, I got a lot of files in here. I'm going to focus on two specific files that I've created Python scripts in. And we're going to go through the process here of putting this script together for yourself. So for the Counter Canon challenge, there's PDFs that are going to need to be analyzed so that you can determine whether or not they have politicized or political racialized words in them. And you'll want to start off by confirming what those words are for your PDFs. So for our PDFs that we were working on, this is the word list that we had. And then, so what I did was I took the one word words and put them into what's called a list. And then I put the phrases, so more than one word, in a different list. So Python has a couple different data structures. A data structure is a way to organize data. So a list is one way of doing that. You'll know that you're using a list by these brackets here, these square brackets at the beginning and the end of the list. There's other data types besides lists. There's also strings, which are basically characters inside of quotation marks. So this is a string, and inside a list, each of those items is separated by a comma. And then the name of the list is a variable that you can put whatever you like. There are some words that are already being used by the Python language that you cannot use. So I can't name a list, for example. But you'll know if you try to name something a word that you're not allowed to name it, because you'll get an error message. So once you've confirmed the words and phrases that you're going to be looking for in the PDFs, the next thing you want to do before you even get to the Python script is actually clean the PDFs. So for me, that process involved Adobe Acrobat, which does what's called OCR text recognition, which I believe stands for optical character recognition. And what that process does is takes each PDF and makes it readable so that you can highlight text, so that text can be recognized letter by letter or word by word. If you've ever used a PDF and tried to highlight the text on it and it doesn't highlight, then that PDF has not been OCR text recognized. And I believe I have, if I'm not mistaken, I have Adobe Acrobat here, just to quickly bring that up. Okay. So I have a couple of PDFs in here. I believe this is actually one of the PDFs that I did for this project. I don't know why it's upside down. Let me see if I can get another one. Okay. So in Adobe Acrobat, it will take a little bit of time to do the OCR text recognition on all the PDFs that you have. There is a way to look at an entire folder of PDFs and do the OCR text recognition on them. So I believe, let's see. It's been a while since I've done it on here. Okay, so if I wanted to take all of these and Yeah. Okay, so this is what I did. I went to scan and OCR. I want to recognize text in multiple files. You can add files or add folders. So I'll add a folder here. And the folders that I was working on were in Dropbox. Can you all still see these menu items here? Okay, good. So in here, there was Sue Jin's articles. So I would choose that folder. There is a protected PDF in there, which is something you'll have to troubleshoot. A protected PDF can't be edited unless you have the password to that PDF. So if it's been downloaded from a website, chances are you don't have the PDF password. So what you'll likely have to do is find an alternative version of that article. So download it from a different source so that it is not protected. So because I don't have that password, I'll just cancel for that particular PDF. Excuse me. And as you can see, a lot of these have OCR at the front. What I did was once these were recognized, you can have a target folder be a different folder for the output location. So I'm going to choose a new folder and I will hit new folder. I'll name this Sue Jin OCR. I will create that folder, choose it. And then what I will do is add to the original file names. You can either insert it before or after, but I inserted before, so it's easier for me to see. I'll put, they already have OCR on them, but I can put it again just for the sake of doing that. And I will not overwrite the existing files. So I'm putting them in a new folder. The document language is in English. I want a searchable image. And downsample 600 is fine. That's the highest one. So I would hit OK, and then it would scan all those files for us. Since I've already done that, I'm not going to do that, but that's the process for working with Adobe to get your PDFs cleared up and ready to go. So coming back to the Python script, there's a couple of parts to a Python script when you're running the code that you will need to have set up. So starting with libraries, libraries are Python code that someone else put together that you can use with your Python code to do certain things. So you can import random library that helps you do random number generators. Here, I've imported a couple different libraries that will help us read PDFs, that will help us scan in particular documents. And then I have a second PDF or a second Python script that I'm going to cover when we get to working with the spreadsheet or creating a spreadsheet. So as we go through the Python script, we're going to hit each of these libraries. We have glob, py, pdf2, os, text, ract, and poplar. So I had to do a little bit of trial and error to figure out which libraries would do what I needed them to do for this project. And these were the ones that I figured that I was able to confirm help us do what we need to do here. The other thing about a Python script that you can have set up are comments. The way that you comment something in a Python script is by starting with a pound sign, and that will allow the characters that you type in after that pound sign not to run as code, but they will run as a comment. So you can type in what you're about to do with the code beneath that comment, which is a good best practice to get in so that other people can read your code and understand what you're doing, or you yourself, when you come back to your code, you can have comments on there that will help you understand what you were trying to do or what you were doing. So The first section, as I mentioned, was the word list of words that we're looking for in these particular PDFs, using a name for the list. You set that equal to, which is an assignment operator that assigns whatever is on the right-hand side, assigns whatever's on the right-hand side to the variable on the left-hand side. Think of a variable like a box. And so it can hold any kind of, most kinds of data types. And in this case, the word list is the box, and the words in the list are inside that box, so that you can use this word list as shorthand to represent all of these other things on the right-hand side. So the word list is here. The next section is I wanted to make all of these lowercase so that it's easier to do the searching later on. So the way that we do that is we created an empty list, which is the square brackets with nothing inside, and we named it lower word list. And then we have a for loop. In Python, what a for loop does is allows you to go either character by character or word by word through a list of things or through a string. So the way that a for loop is structured is you have for word, which is word is a iterator. It's the iterator variable that's going to represent each word in the list one at a time. So for word in word list, we're going to add or append the lower version of that word. So this for loop is going to take each of these words one at a time. So it'll start with subaltern, and it'll put subaltern where it says word. Dot lower is an execution that will apply the function lower to the word, and it'll put it in lowercase. And that's inside these parentheses. And these parentheses belong to the function append, and append will take whatever is inside these parentheses and add it to this list, lower word list. So that's a really quick and dirty way to understand for loops, but you're going to be using a lot of them in this Python script. So, and I'm sure the script is going to be available to folks as well. So you'll be able to kind of read through it and change it as needed once you're using it. So now that we've made all of these words lowercase, we have the phrase list, which are strings that have more than one word in them. And then we have one 3-word phrase, which is this phrase here, counter storytelling. And the reason why we're separating these from 1 word to 2 words to 3 words is that when we check each PDF, we need to know if we need 1 word to 1 word searches, 2 word to 2 word searches, or groups of 3 words compared to this particular phrase of interest. And I'll get into that more once we get down to that part of the script. So before I move on to sort of this next section of the script, are people following so far? Okay, great. I see nodding heads, which is good. Okay, I'm just going to pull this out a little bit so I can see everybody more. Great. Okay, so the next section here is going to be dealing with the PDFs themselves. So we want to keep track of each PDF. If we have like 25 of them, for example, we want to keep track of which PDF number we're on. In Python, the numbering system starts with 0. So if you have 5 items in a list, the first item is going to be item 0. The second item is going to be item 1. The third item is going to be item 2. The fourth item is going to be item 3, and the fifth item is going to be item 4. This comes into play a lot in Python when you are, and we'll see this in just a moment as we're going through those PDFs in the list of PDFs. So we'll need to understand which number we're at, and that'll come into play as we move through all of those PDFs in the folder. So we start with this variable called num PDFs. We assign it the value 0. And as we take each PDF one at a time and search all of the words in it, we will also increase that variable by 1. So as each PDF comes in and out of our coding, we will increase that number. And then once that number hits the last PDF in the directory, then our code will stop. So that's the variable we're going to be keeping track of those numbers with. We use the glob library that is going to help us find each PDF in the directory that we're looking at. And we're using another for loop. And this time our iterator is PDF. You can name your iterator whatever you want, but it helps if you name it something that represents the items that you're looking at. And in this case, we're looking at one PDF at a time in the directory. So for PDF in glob.glob, this is just the setup for using the glob library. And then what we're looking to find is any item in the directory that ends in the 3 letters PDF. So that's what this glob function does, is it takes whatever is inside this string, and this star means it's a wild card. So the star represents anything before .pdf. Okay. So we're looking for things that end in PDF in this for loop. The first thing we do is when we find a PDF, we're going to increase our variable by 1. So plus equals is a Python way of saying num PDFs equals num PDFs plus 1. So if I wanted to rewrite that as the standard way, you'll see that it is repeating num PDFs. And if you want to save, that should be plus 1. So if you want to save space and you want to save just a fraction of a moment, you can write that like this. So these two things are the same thing, if that makes sense. But I don't need that twice because it'll do that twice. So I'm going to comment that out. So we increase this number by 1, and I set up a check for making sure that the code was running correctly. So I wanted it to print PDF. Printing something allows you to see in the output what a title of a document is, or a string, or a variable. It sort of allows you to see what the code has done. So printing will print in the output box whatever you put inside the parentheses. Here, PDF is going to be representing the title of a PDF as well as the object of a PDF. So everything that's contained inside the PDF. And I also want to print this PDF is number, and then I'm adding to that string the number that we're at. And since that number is not a string, it's a numerical data type, I have to turn it into a string so that I can add it to the phrase, this is PDF number. So that this string here is being added to a stringification of the number in our variable there. So this is a lot of like basic PDF or basic Python that I'm sort of running through very, very quickly. But like I said, I'm hoping that you all can watch this video again for any concepts that are tricky for you as you're going through these scripts yourself. So I decided to skip specific PDFs because they were password protected, or they were a book and they were going to be too long for the script to handle. So I said, if the PDF that we're working with is the same as, that's what 2 equal signs means. So this is a comparison operator that says, if the thing on the right is the same as the thing on the left, and an if statement will be true or false. So if this phrase is true, then it's going to run the code under the if statement. And if it's not true, it'll run what's in the else statement. So if else statements in Python allow you to determine or to run a specific piece of code dependent on if something is true or false. So in this case, if the PDF title is this thing, we have an or that connects it. So or this thing, you see there's a lot of them here. If it's any of those things, so even if it's just one of them, with an or statement for a truth value, any of them needs to be true, the whole thing is true. If it was an and statement, everything would need to be true. So logic tables are something that you can get into a little bit more with Python, but for the purposes of this script, with or statements, only one of them has to be true in order for the or code or the if code that's here to run. So I just print, there's going to be an error, so it doesn't run the rest of the code on that PDF that I don't want to run the code on. For everything else that we're not skipping, you'll see this is a very long else statement. There's a lot going on in it, and it just keeps going, right? So if it is a PDF that we want to run our code on, it's going to run under this else statement. We're going to start with a dictionary. A dictionary is a type of data set, or it's a type of data that allows you to have key value pairs. So similar to a list, it's got two brackets, but these are curly brackets that designate that this is a dictionary. So curly brackets are dictionaries, square brackets are lists. And the way that a dictionary works is you have key value pairs. So once this is filled up, you have a key, colon, value, and then a comma to separate them. So this will mean that like a regular dictionary, like a paper dictionary, the key would be the word that you're looking up, and the value would be the definition. So if I'm looking up the word osteoporosis, that's the key. The value is the definition of osteoporosis. In Python, you can have a key value pair be any sort of data type. So the key could be a number and the value could be a string or vice versa. In our case, we're going to create a dictionary that has a key of the word we're interested in or the phrase that we're interested in. So if the word is subaltern, subaltern would be the key, and the value would be the number of times subaltern appears in the PDF, right? And we'll do that for every word and phrase that we have. So the dictionary will be filled with keys that are the words we're interested in or the phrases we're interested in. And the values will be the number of times those words or phrases are found in each PDF, which means that each PDF is going to have its own dictionary, right? So at the end of this, we're going to print out a list of PDF titles and a list of their specific dictionary that shows how many times each word or phrase showed up in that PDF. So that's what this first line is about. We want to start off with an empty dictionary, and then we'll populate it as we go through the code and as we go through the PDFs. So the first thing we do is another for loop. For every word in this list, lower word list, what we're doing is starting off by setting the value of that key value pair to 0. And with dictionaries, this is the syntax or the way that we write it up in Python. So the name of our dictionary is WordDic, which is abbreviation there. And we start off with the name of the dictionary. We put in square brackets the key, and we assign the value. This is an assignment operator that assigns whatever is on the right-hand side to whatever's on the left-hand side. So this is the name of the dictionary, the key, and we're assigning it the value of 0. So everything starts off with a 0. And as we compare each word in the PDF to each word in our list, if we find a match, we're going to increase the value by 1. And we'll do that for the entire PDF until we reach the end. We've checked all the words against all of the words of interest. And then we'll have a total number of times that word appears in the PDF for each word. And then for each PDF, we create keys in the dictionary using the phrase list. So this is the 2 word phrases. Lower word list is 1 words or single words. Phrase list is 2 words. And then we have 1 3-word item. And we're setting up each of these things in our dictionary, starting with 0. The next thing we do is we're going to use files. File reading in Python is a process where you can open a file. And when you open a file, you can open it in reading mode, in writing mode. And I think there's a third one I'm forgetting. But in our case, we're going to start with a variable that represents each file. So this PDF file object, we're going to assign it to open each PDF in reading mode, right? And then we have a reader, which using the library PyPDF2, it's going to actually read all of the words of that PDF file into the reader object. So this reader object, if we were to print it out, it would have a dictionary of, or it would be a representation of the PDF. So all of the words in that PDF sort of in a list. We want to know how many pages are in each PDF because we're going to go page by page. So we start with a counter. You call that variable count. We assign it the value of 0. And then what we do is once we have that count variable, we're going to assign it to the number of pages. And reader.numPages is a function that will count all of the pages in that PDF for us. So this is another benefit of using libraries. Libraries come with functions in Python that are already built for us. So we don't have to build those functions. We just need to know what they are so that we can use them. So now we have our PDFs, we have our word lists, and we have our counters. So the count, we have a while loop here. A while loop is like a for loop. It goes through items systematically, but a while loop will go as long as you tell it to go. So it doesn't go according to the number of items in a list, for example. Here we have the while loop set up to where if the count is greater than or equal to 0. So remember, the count is the number of pages. Let's say the PDF has 15 pages. So while the count of 15 is greater than or equal to 0, all of this code is going to run. We start off by decreasing the count by 1 every time the code runs. So as we move through each page, that count is getting smaller and smaller. Once we get to the last page, it's going to run that last page and then it'll be 0. And then the count is no longer, once the count is less than 0. So on the last page will be 0 because we start in Python by counting at 0. Then once it's lower than 0, once it's -1, this while loop is not going to count, is not going to run anymore. So this is how we get through each page one by one. So we get one page at a time from the PDF, extract the text of that page, and split the text into a list of strings. That's what this code here does. We have a page object that represents the number of pages. And then we have an empty string, which is the quotation marks with nothing in them, that will be the text. So we have a try except, which is another type of statement in Python where you have some code you want to try, but if you get an error message, then the except code is going to run. So first thing we want to do is try to extract the text, which is a function that already exists from one of our libraries. But if the text extraction fails for whatever reason, then it's going to throw this exception that will print the text extraction failed on page, which is a string there. And then we'll print another line that will give us the count that we're on. So we know, oh, the page 2, or rather PDF number 2, I wasn't able to extract the text on. So that's what this code is for. If we are successful, then the text is going to be a long string that has every word on that PDF's page. The next thing we want is to take a look at the file path. So a file path, for example, is this Counter Canon challenge document. It's in the Dropbox folder, which is in my, I think this is the /users/LaShawn/Dropbox/countercanonchallenge.ipnyb. So that's a file path. It tells your computer exactly where a particular item on your computer is. So what we do is we get the file path of each PDF. If the text is empty, then we try another way of extracting the text using a different library. And we use a specific kind of encoding so that we can read it properly. This is an old way that I was trying to extract text. So it's commented out, so we don't have to worry about it. It wasn't working. This is also something that I was trying when I was looking at text that was the wrong encoding. Also not terribly important, but what it does is basically corrects the encoding of the PDF so that we can read it. That's what the important part of this section is here. Once we have the text of the PDF, we want to assign it to this variable PDF words, and we split it, meaning that the string gets split into individual strings that are housed inside a list, and the split function will split each of those strings, each of the elements of the string by the space. So if we have the sentence, "This is a dog," as a string, and we split it, we'll get a list that has this comma, is comma, a comma, dog. And that's what we get here with PDF words. We're going to get the text of a PDF page. We're going to split each word by the space, so we get a list of all the words on the page. Now that we have each word on the PDF's page, we're going to do another for loop, and we're going to check the PDF text for words of interest from the word list, from the phrase list, and from the 3-word phrase counter storytelling. For each of these, it's going to be slightly different because we have comparing one word to comparing one word, then we have comparing 2 words to comparing 2 words, and then we have comparing 3 words to comparing 3 words in the PDF, on the PDF page. When we're comparing one word to another, we have for the special word in the lower word list. So these are the words of interest we want to find. If the special word is in the word from the PDF, which we lower, we want everything in lowercase, then we add it to the dictionary. The key is the special word, and then we're going to increase the value of that key by 1 because we found a word that we want. When we're working with 2 words at a time, we are going to use a for loop that will start with I, which is the iterator. It could be anything, but I called it I. And the range we're going to search I in is from 0 to the total number of words on that PDF page. So the length or the total number of words on the page, PDF words. If I is less than 1 minus that, so basically if it's not the last word on the PDF, then we're going to create a 2-word phrase to check against the phrases in the phrase list. Yes, Stephanie.
Okay, Shamika, no offense, but at this point, things seem like a lot of steps, and it's now starting to merge together in my head. I'm not going to speak for anyone else, but it's a lot. I'm wondering, do we have to do this for each PDF, or is this like a setup that we could just quickly and easily plug into each time? So we only have to do this setup one time And also, are you going to
Mhm.
give us this text that we could just copy and paste and then make the changes accordingly? Or
Yes.
are we going to have?
So yes to both.
Okay.
This Python script is designed to take in a directory of PDFs that have been cleaned once you've done the OCR text recognition on them. And this script will run through each PDF.
Mhm.
It'll run through each word in each PDF on each page of each PDF and compare it to the words that we're interested in. I've given y'all this script. I'm happy to give it to you again so that y'all have access to it and you can change it as needed. So for example, if the words you're interested in change, then you can update the list of words at the top of this Python script.
Okay. I feel better now. I was like, oh no, it's becoming mush and I'm scared.
Well, I think the main point of me explaining what each of these sections are, especially for the recording, is so if you do need to change something, you have a sense of where you need to change it, right? So basically this section goes through and compares 1 word at a time, 2 words at a time, and 3 words at a time. So that's what this coding is for right here. And each time, if we find the word or phrase we're looking for, we increase the value in the key value pair by 1. So at the bottom here, we're going to print the dictionaries and you can see what they look like. This is what a dictionary looks like here, this section. We have the key, which is the word we're interested in, subaltern. We have the value, which is 0. So that means that in the PDF number 1, this is the title of the PDF, subaltern does not appear. But indigenous does appear 4 times and Black appears 15 times, etc. So that's what we're going to print out when we print the word dictionary. That's what this is here. The last part of this script is figuring out whether or not the PDF that we're looking at is in fact politically racialized. This formula was determined by the Counter Canon Challenge committee. And for them, the political count is if there's more than 1 word that shows up in the PDF, then it is politically racialized. And the way that that works in the script is we have a for loop that goes through all of the values in the dictionary. So all of these numbers, 0, 4, 15, etc. And if the value is greater than 0, then we're going to increase the counter political count by 1. And then if political count is greater than 1, meaning there's more than 1 word that we found of interest, then we're going to print that PDF is politically racialized. And then at the bottom, we print done so that we know that our code is done running. I only have a few more moments and I want to touch on the spreadsheet piece, which is a little bit less involved, but still does have a couple of components to it. So I'll have to give you the spreadsheet script because I don't think I gave it to y'all. I did this manually when I first did the Counter Canon Challenge Python script. But there is a way using Python to take this data and turn it into a spreadsheet instead of having to do it manually. So that's the power of Python, if you will. You can do a lot with it if you know what your options are. Similar to the first script, we do have a library that we're using. And the bib text parser, that was just because I was using this for bib files, so we don't have to worry about that. The library we're going to be using is OpenPyXL, and we're importing workbook because we're going to work with a Excel sheet. This is how you create that workbook. So a spreadsheet is a workbook. It has different sheets on it. And then we're going to save it as, and this is the name of the document that we're creating. We're going to save it first, and then we're just going to write to it. The columns for the workbook are the headers. You start with the sheet A1 and then B1. These are the columns in the sheet A, B, C, D, and E, first row. And then you title them. So for this project, it would be the title of the PDF, each of the words on the list. So that would be each of them would be its own column. And then the last column would be politically racialized. And that would be a yes or no. And then you would save it with the title that you have up there. So we've saved these headers. The next part is to iterate through the PDF in this case, and then you would add those details to the spreadsheet. So we would end up putting all of the code that we have here where we're going through the PDFs, that would be in the column here. So we have the columns that we already established up here, and this is going to iterate through the column and the row. So we'll start with column 2, and then we'll start at A, and we'll go B, C, D, E, etc. Then we'll go to to row 3, column A, B, C, etc. And then all the way down until we run out of data. And then once all of that code runs, we want to save the workbook. So what I will do is I will consolidate these 2 scripts and send the updated script to you. We do have a couple more minutes, and I apologize. I did run through that as quickly as I could, but it was for the recording so that you all have all this information on the recording. But really quickly, are there any questions about anything or anything y'all want me to go through again? I will also say, as you're familiarizing yourself with Python, this is an advanced Python script. So you want to give yourself some grace. If you come across something you're not familiar with, I highly recommend, because I did this a lot myself as I was putting the script together, was to Google something like Python string, and then what you're trying to find out. Or if you're not sure what to Google, you can copy and paste in the code that you're curious about, and it might have a couple hits because the code could be too specific. But if you're trying to figure out an if statement or a for loop or a while loop or a dictionary or a string or a list or any of these things, I'm hoping that I gave enough information in this presentation that you'll understand some of the concepts enough so that you can go ahead and Google if you have questions.
Yeah, this was super helpful, Shamika. Do you have anything else specifically for the recording, or should I stop the recording?
I think I went through everything I wanted to go through, so you can stop the recording.
Okay, cool. Michael